Hey guys, I'm Amaroth and welcome to the third part of my WoW theory series, and we will take a look at server side. So a little introduction to server. Server is responsible for connecting game clients together and handling world behavior itself. Server is a very vague term though. It in fact consists of multiple, at least 3 different servers, which can even be completely separated and can run on different computers connected by network. This whole tutorial is here mainly because emulator pages usually don't really bother with explaining these kind of things. They tend to focus on emulator and database itself and not on surrounding stuff which is needed especially for remotely accessible or multi-realm server to work. Remember, this is just about theory. I'll show you how to make all described things work in dedicated server-side series. So, servers and server-side files. You've got authserver, Worldserver, and MySQL server. Those are those 3 servers. We've got server-side maps and server-side DBCs. As you can see in this overview, authserver uses auth database in MySQL server, and Worldserver uses all 3 databases in MySQL server and server-side DBCs and maps. Those 3 databases in MySQL server are auth, characters, and word. We can have multiple auth servers, we can have multiple word servers attached to one auth server. So how to get servers and extractors? MySQL server is a freeware, you can download it and install it in a normal way on both Linux and Windows. authserver, Worldserver and extractors for getting server-side maps are a little bit more difficult to obtain though. You can download them all in one already compiled webpack. This webpack can contain already extracted server-side maps. In such case, it may lack extractors. Such webpack is absolutely worthless if you want to edit any game maps whatsoever. I highly recommend you downloading emulator source and compiling it on your own. You can learn a lot by just doing so. It can be very rewarding and gives you completely free hands to server customization. The most essential thing is to get extractors. If you want to create any sort of custom map, if you want to edit any sort of map, you will need those extractors. So if you download a repack and there are extractors missing, you are basically screwed. Let's talk about authserver. authserver is basically a realm selection server. It uses its own account database and is responsible for handling access rights, bans, IP logs, etc. authserver's IP address and optionally a port are to be set in realm's WTF file in the following format: ip.port. Multiple authservers can run on one IP address. However, they are completely separated from each other, they have to use different ports, and game client can always be connected to only one of them. Worldserver. Worldserver is one realm server. It's responsible for player data handling, player interaction, NPC, quest and game object handling, etc. It can but doesn't have to run on the same computer as authserver, it just needs to use different port. There can be multiple world servers connected to one authserver, multiple realms. They can all run on one computer on multiple computers again. Every single world server should use the same account database as its authserver. However, it has its own characters and word database. It also has its own server-side maps and DBC files. MySQL server, you can again have multiple MySQL servers, and every MySQL server is responsible for managing MySQL databases. There are 3 databases. Auth database that stores accounts, access rights, bans, IP logs. Characters database, which stores character-based data needed by one word server guilds, inventories, arena teams. There is also a word database, which stores environment-based data needed by one word server. NPCs, quests, game objects, game events, items, but only stats for items. So basically for every single auth server you need one auth database, and for every single word server you need one characters and one word database. Server-side maps. Server-side maps are being generated by extractors which use client-side maps, ADTs, WDTs as source files. Maps. Maps are needed for general chat, who list, fatigue, delivering fishing goods, graveyard systems, etc. If anything of listed gives you trouble, type .gps command in buggy zone in-game. If it states zone area 0 or if it throws some random area which simply isn't supposed to be there. Your server maps are corrupted or outdated. Vmaps or vector maps are mostly needed for correct NPC behavior in WMO buildings. For example, if NPCs attack you from second floor of building while you are just passing by building's outdoor parts, your vmaps are corrupted, outdated, or switched off in config file. Vmaps are optional, although very recommended. Mmaps, movement maps are used for NPC pathfinding. If pathfinding doesn't work for you, you need to update them or switch them all in config. Keep in mind that proper pathfinding works only for WMOs, not for M2s, which means that NPCs can avoid passing through M2s, but they will be able to go over models only when those models are WMOs. So if you make a bridge and the bridge is made of WMOs or one WMO model, NPC will be able to pass over that bridge. But if that bridge is made of M2s, NPC simply won't be able to pass that bridge, it will fall into it. Server-side DBCs. Server-side DBCs are exactly the same as client-side DBCs. Every world server can use different set of DBCs. World server doesn't need DBCs. DBCs are used by server for different purposes than by client. For example, while client needs DBC to find what should spell's visual effect look like, server uses the very same DBC table to figure out what should spell's effect actually do, how big the image, how big is its mana cost, etc. It's the best to always keep completely up-to-date DBCs on both client and server side. A few notes. The most usual configuration is one MySQL server with 3 databases in it, one authserver, one Worldserver with its maps, vmaps, mmaps and DBCs, usually on one computer under one IP address. But this isn't the only possible solution. You can distribute those servers between multiple computers. You can also have multiple realms, even multiple authservers with multiple realms. All of these can smoothly run on one computer without any issues. Linux VPS with 20 GB of hard drive, 2 GB of RAM and 2 cores or better should be able to handle up to 100 players or more. So if you want to have a small publicly available server, this configuration should do for you. The main purpose of maybe confusing pieces of information in this tutorial was to highlight the fact that you can connect multiple servers to each other. As I have already said, maps, vmaps, and mmaps and DBCs can be shared between multiple world servers if you run multiple realms, or every single world server can have its own data. It's up to you. Another parts of server are free. Restarter. If server is restarted, shut down, or if it crashes, it needs to be started again in general. At least this is true for authserver and Worldserver. Restarter is a script which keeps server running and starts again if it gets shut. Then we can have backup scripts. It's quite essential to keep backups of your server. The most needed backups are backups of databases, especially characters database. But you may want to also backup server source in case you are editing it or whatever else. As Word database can be very useful to have backup as well. Registration system. Keep in mind that for publicly available server you will need a registration system that is commonly made as PHP script on web page but can also be implemented into launcher or anything else with access rights to Auth database. It needs to be something what can insert a new account into Auth database basically. And that's pretty much it. So I hope this was useful for you. Thanks for watching, have a nice day and happy modding guys.